Hello, guys. I'm Mohammed. Today, I want to walk you through a thought experiment called TDP and would appreciate any thoughts and feedbacks. Let's get started. Okay, to understand the main idea, first we will go through evolutionary history of financial system and have a really brief idea of how we get to the current situation we are in. You can find some kind of information about the four concepts that we are going to talk in the first scene, which is partitioning market, sponge, leakage, and the basket. And in the second part, we will continue with the mass production and how it affects market and people behavior. And eventually, we're going through the main idea, which is trusted dynamic pricing. So, now we are in the first scene and we are going to see the system, the financial system, in an abstract way. And the first abstraction I want to talk about is partitioning. So, in a thought experiment, I want to imagine that the market is divided into partitions or submarkets like house market, food market, and health market, and so on and so forth. And the money is circulating inside the submarkets. So, here is the first concept or abstractions that I want you to pay attention to that. So keep this in mind. We want to see one of the major events in our history, which is the end of gold standard in 1971. So after the cancellation of the 1971, there was some kind of major consequences on the system. But before moving forward, I want you to pay attention that this total supply of the system before this event was restricted by the amount of gold that is reserved in the financial system, and it was not controlled by government. I want you to pay attention that the government itself is restricted to public opinion and war cost and fill the possible technological gaps faster than the competitors. So here is algorithm that is every government wants to achieve. With removing the constraint on the system, which was, pegging dollar to gold, and with the needs of governments, the governments most of the time had to spend more than their budget. So they spend more with some kind of bond markets and other tools in the hand of the government. But the consequences of this spending more doesn't matter with bond market or other things, is that the government is gonna face an extra flow of money in the system. But this extra flow of money should be controlled to not be absorbed by influential partitions or submarkets like food and health. The first thing comes to mind is to convey this flow of money to the submarkets or the partitions that are most regulated, like real estate market or house market. So here are some of the reasons that the house market is very popular. The first thing is that the volume of this market, transaction volume of this market is very low, or in other way, the TPS of the market is very low. Another reason is some kind of regulation, for example, density management or some kind of other regulation that the government has on top of the house market. Now we can see house market as the second abstract concept we have called sponge. The sponge markets are regulated enough to absorb money and bring down the effect of extra flow of money on the other submarkets. This process resulted in house price skyrocketing, and also lots of current politicians in the United States right now are from real estate market. So absolutely in the circulation of money in sponge submarkets, there are some leakages to other markets, but it is not favorable. The government tries to minimize this leakage with incentivizing people to invest in house market with mortgages and interest rate changes. Now we understood the third abstraction, which is leakage. With this three concepts in mind, let's see the crypto market evolution. After 1980 recession, dot-com bubble, 2008 crisis, and some of academical talks about ideal money from Nash, Bitcoin emerged. After 6 years of observation of this market from the government, we see the creation of USDT and also Ethereum. So, after 2014, which is the time of USDT creation, I think the government had decided to use this new market as a sponge. But for maintaining the sponge market, we need to minimize the leakage. But how is it possible? You know the answer. It's again about regulation. Imagine 7 years ago you spent £1 million to buy Bitcoin or crypto assets without any extra fees or tax. But during the time you get more profit and it gets £10 million right now. And you want to bring this money back to the market to buy something else. But for bring this money back to the market, you would pay up to 40% tax. So what is the consequences of this tax rate? It's a potential threshold that persuades you to see the value of your asset just in your wallet and prevents you to bring your money back to the market. So the problem solved and the leakage is negligible. So far we understood three abstractions which are partition, sponge, and also leakage. The vision is not far from reality. The crypto market value is $4 trillion. House price index is rising despite the birth rate, which is not ascending. But I think we can revise this model to better mental model to describe the current situation. With the help of a statistic, we can find repetitive pattern in money flow circulation between different submarkets. Imagine we can find pattern between post market, crypto market, and also stock market. One of the possible patterns could be every outflow from house market and stock market would be absorbed by crypto market. In general, if we can control the money circulation between these submarkets to do not affect externally and motivate internal circulation, we can create a bigger partition, which is the fourth abstractions we have. We call it basket. In basket, the goal is to minimize the cumulative leakage. The government can use propaganda and also news injection to signal the market based on the situation. And I think the risk-free businesses are the facilitators of these flows and the guys who have access to the news before getting published. And I want to mention that this mental model is not limited to just one country. In fact, because it's working faster to fill the technological gaps, it's applicable to the most of the modern financial systems. Now let's talk about how the money absorption happens in crypto markets based on my experience as a person who was in fintech and blockchain space. We will mostly talk about pricing mechanisms like OMSs and also AMMs. Let's start with OMS. Until 2020, the price set by OMSs, which simply designed to match the buy and sell orders. But network of them can have interesting feature which I talk about. Just keep in mind that exchange would profit if there is an inflow in their system and they try to minimize the outflow in the system. With huge buy in short period of time or pumping and change the range of price to another boundary, some people start to get arbitrage from these differences. But as money outflow is not in favor of exchanges, they create internal bots. These bots has access to famous price sources and also they have prior access to the queue of orders because of the internal design. Also keep in mind that there is an internet communication delay. With these features in mind, these bots do some internal transactions. The internal bots, which watch the price of famous sources, can lead to fake transactions, which is not a real trade, and just change the prices internally. This leads to a situation which is a strategy to create a huge buy queue in famous exchanges, which could be 30% of the transactions volume, can effectively change the whole price in the world. After that, as a strategist could establish a potential threshold in global market, they could slowly put their money out of the market and use it somewhere else. If the outflow of money happens fast, it makes dumping. Here are some dumping examples like a meme coin promoted from President of Argentina, which got too high at first and gets $5 billion market cap, and it dropped later, and the president removed the Twitter message. Also, you can find Trump meme coin. Never mind. Let's go back to the pricing algorithms. It's like a positive feedback loop that create a threshold for prices with the help of bots and also the asset holders who are happy that the value of their asset increased. Now let's see AMMs, which was an innovation back in 2020. Explanation of AMMs are a little bit harder, but I want to model it as a spring. The idea is to create liquidity pools containing pair assets with initialized amount. It's like a hydraulic jack, and people could invest with pouring money in the pools. People can swap their asset to another paired asset in the pool with some transaction fee. And as it wants to do not make some of the assets in pair empty, the asset equities follow a curve like this. I think it can be a stabilizer to damp the sudden drop in prices and interconnect the asset prices to each other. Interconnection of product prices to Bitcoin or gold in a way that we will discuss in trusted dynamic pricing model that we have could have some similarities. In the second part, we'll talk about mass production and the result of it in changing the relation between people and market. During industrialization, we applied automation on processes, which decreased the cost of production. In another word, cheaper products. With some changes in the regulations of other nations and sending cheap end products to other places, some nations brought back gold and wealth, no matter what was the cost. This algorithm, which contains automation and also changing the regulation, backfires on US as China is applying more efficient automation on the processes. But what doesn't change? fixed price model. The continuation of this model without any changes may would result in cancellation of free trade agreements. You can see the symptoms, tariffs. Before going further, I want you to imagine a vector model for visualizing the convergence of people in different conditions. For example, most of the vectors in the society right now are converged together for creating wealth. Another example for visualization is in war situation, when most of the vectors in the society are converged for defending the country. Before industrialization, and as the result of regional and nearly closed markets, like the markets in the cities, the market actors should behave in a way to gain reputation in order to persuade people to buy from their businesses, which would result in redistributing their money and power to build public services like water tunnels, religious buildings like temples, mosques, and churches. This dynamic means that there was another convergence in the system which was so powerful, and we call this convergence gaining reputation. As the result of closed markets and mostly regional markets, the people had more influence on the market's behavior. Right now, we see the opposite of that behavior, and the market are shaping the behavior of the people. On the right side, you can find some examples of closed markets from China, India, Iran, Turkey, Tunisia, and Italy. So now it's a time for main idea, but let's focus on the dynamic pricing part and we'll go for trusted part later. The idea is that instead of having fixed price tags on products, we define a curve that is a relationship between price and sales volume, or simply the number of products that has been sold. We call this deal curve. This curve is defined in a matter of time, which is a fixed constant value like 1 week, 2 week, 1 month, a year. We call it deal time. The consumer will buy products in initial price, and after the deal time passed, they will receive difference between initial price and the respective curve price, which you can see here. It's simple till now, but our idea is to return this difference in another methodology. Before deal get started, businesses should calculate total differential return. And peg it to the non-inflationary asset like Bitcoin or gold, hold in the hand of trusted custodial third party. After the deal time passed, consumers will receive the difference in pegged asset, no matter price of pegged asset goes up or down. Now let's see an example. Imagine a deal that the total differential return is $10,000 and the deal time is going to be 1 month and maximum sale volume is 500. The business should like 10,000 equivalent to Bitcoin, which is going to be 8 million Satoshis these days. The consumers bought products in $10 each. And after the deal time passed, the business sold out 400 items. The difference between initial price and curve price is $4. The money that consumer will receive calculated here. As you can see, the purple part doesn't matter. Just pay attention that after 1 month, which is the deal time, the price of Bitcoin could increase or decrease, which increase is more probable and may result in profit for consumers. Now let's talk about the trusted part. This flow needs to be trusted from consumer point of view. For this matter, we can utilize zero knowledge to create a framework to keep track of sold items in a trust minimized way. We can call it ZK accountant. Also, it can be triggered by QR code, for example. After that, consumer can receive email from businesses which contains differential price in Bitcoin. And with the help of ZK email project, the consumer can make a proof of receiving such email from formal business account without compromising their identity. And after that, they can receive their Bitcoin. We're not going to go into the details of the technical side of project, but I think we can use Arc project for creating a custodial service in Bitcoin. And also the ZK email role is obvious here. And also we need some kind of ZK accountant part. Now let's answer to this question. What does it solve? One of the problems in Bitcoin is that it doesn't have intrinsic value. Even for gold, around 10% of it gets used in industry. With this methodology, we're pegging the difference, which we mentioned before, to these assets. The result is increase in transaction velocity of these assets. Also, it will find a role in the supply chains. In this way, these assets can find their own intrinsic value in the supply chains. Another problem that could be mitigated is about privilege information that we discussed before. Because we peg this asset in deal time and also the asset is logged, we made a strong relationship between pegged asset and the product which have intrinsic value. And there is a real demand for that. In this way, pumping the asset is going to be harder as it causes change in demand of products. Also, in our mental model, it would increase the leakage. And it could remove the predictability and manipulation in baskets, which we talked before. Also, with some changes in the idea, we can add the concept of reputation. We'll discuss it in next slide. To add reputation, we need another value in the sales volume index. We call it reputation threshold. The difference that we calculated would be measured from this point. And as you can see, the yellow line is going to be spent in public interest in a transparent way. Here are some of the markets that I think we can apply this model. For example, Shopify add-on. Also, the airlines which are less interested into charter could motivate people to choose their airlines. Also, for small businesses like farm shops or supermarkets to compete with chain stores, it would be beneficial. Also, I think the improvement in the case of Morsel for small businesses could be too much bigger than the chain stores which are already optimized. Now that we know how the model works, we can go one step further and see how it could affect the world. Nowadays, we delegate most of the financial decisions to the government. While having this model will help us to distribute decision making processes, which empowers people. Especially in the age of robotic and AI, empowering people instead of delegating power to the government, which is a single point of failure, seems to be necessary. I don't deny that the current financial system, with the previously mentioned attributes, is very good at filling technological gaps. But if there is no major technological gaps in near future, and because the world is not unipolar anymore, I think we would face a world like Europe before 16th century, in bigger scale with more powerful weapons. Unless we could change the game smoothly in a bottom-up movement which is pro-development and also anti-war. Now guys, we come to the end. Thank you for your attention to this matter very strongly.